It's wonderful to be back. You can hear me okay? Yesterday, I touched on the Bodhicitta, arousing the mind of awakening, this vital energy to fully realize who and what we are. It's a very fundamental notion in Buddhism, perhaps especially in Mahayana Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, and in much of the Far East. It's referred to many times in the Mahayana Sutras. Is the Zen tradition doesn't speak of it so much, but when you have the eye, you can see it in a sense underlying pretty much the entire life and practice of Zen. As mentioned, in the beginning, Bodhicitta is a kind of a decision, a determination to devote ourselves to a life of practice. We can't just hope for the best or dream about it or read books or even simply sit in meditation. We have to devote ourselves to the practice in a profound sense. No, it doesn't mean we have to give up our relationships and go live in a monastery, not at all. Plenty of people go live in the monastery as an escape, face it. It's not a question of that. It's a question of giving all of ourselves to the practice. In a sense, once we open up to this bodhicitta, this genuine need to fulfill what and who we truly are, this awakening. It's the most natural thing in the world. It pulls us in a way, in a good sense. When we run away from it, try to escape from it, I trust you see, there is the difficulty in the practice. The practice itself is not even one. How can you say it's difficult? If it's difficult, see what you're doing wrong and correct it. The practice is not difficult. The confused mind is. And we all know this because all of us have run hundreds, if not thousands of times in those mental wheels. And we realize we end up at the same place, just a little more tired, going nowhere fast, as we say. So, yes, in the beginning, this rousing the mind to awaken requires effort. It requires determination. It requires patience. It requires humbleness or humility. Yes, if you think you're just going to get there because you want to, you might as well go play golf. And yet, it's not really difficult. I won't say it's always easy because it's not, but it is finally very, very simple, very, very simple to stop escaping from what is right under our feet, to not run away, to not escape. Piotr yesterday raised a useful question that I'm sure many of us have. You can feel that you're still with the frustration of running around in those same old circles. Yes, this is an important part of the practice. You have to see that for what it is, and you have to let it go. You created it. You can undo it. Nobody else can do that for you. Each one of us comes from our own past with our own karma, as we like to say, huh? That's right. That's right. It's not going to go away just because you want it to or you wish it would go away. This requires work. That's why bodhicitta in the beginning is a willful determination. Huh? You see? Yes, it's still the self struggling with itself. That's right. But done properly, it burns itself up in a very good way in that practice. Huh? But we have to humbly, sincerely see what our mind is doing. Not what we want it to do. What is your mind actually doing? If you don't see that, is it any wonder that you can't begin to practice and you find it frustrating? This kind of determination, I am not going to live my life following my delusions, causing pain to those around me and to myself. I will not live another day like that. No, I must devote myself to a genuine practice. To live what? I don't mean to become a Buddhist and stop being a Christian, something as silly as that. No, I mean to truly, fully be who and what you are. When you really give yourself, no, it doesn't have to be perfect, but sincerely, humbly give ourselves to the practice with patience, yes. You start to see that those hindrances, those obstacles, the things that get in the way, the pain, the sleepiness, the wandering mind, oh, this is fuel for the fire. This is energy for the practice. Seeing how to use that in a sense in the practice. Once that happens, you realize there is no hindrance. Having to get a loaf of bread is not a hindrance. Pain in the legs is not a hindrance. We're not here to torture ourselves, but if there is pain in the legs after sitting for hours, pay attention. What is that really? What is that? Listen. Really listen intimately. What is that pain? Where does it really come from? And this in itself can be the way. The way. Again, I'm not saying you have to torture yourself, but if that's what your present practice is, there it is. That is the way. That is the way. If you're in a very, very pleasurable state, fine. That can be the way too, as long as you don't get hung up in it. It will end. It will end. Then you can see the real joy that comes unhindered, unbound, unbound. It has nothing to do with conditions. But you have to come to this for yourself. You have to do what we call the grunt work, that maybe not so interesting and exciting work of seeing what your mind is doing and bringing it back, using the body, the breath, and the mind itself to tame that wild animal, as we say. You have what you need. The question is whether you apply yourself or not. Whether you will apply yourself. That means moment to moment, not just for a weekend. Again, realize, see with your whole body and mind what your body and mind are doing. What kind of stress, what kind of confusion is being caused? Really see it, and that itself becomes the way through. Not by running away from it or pretending it's not there or trying to think about something else. That just continues the same delusive circle. At best, it replaces one delusion with another. Drop it all. Drop it all. You don't need it. You don't need it. This is what it means to leave home or leave the world. As you all know, Buddhism is very much involved in this notion. Gautama Buddha, Shakyamuni himself, his leaving his family, in effect, his kingdom, leaving everything and going on a so-called spiritual quest. This has become enshrined in the Buddhist tradition. To leave home or to leave the world. These are two ways to commonly render this in English. To leave home or to leave the world. But what does that really mean? What does it really entail? What do we really have to give up? People have such naive, silly notions about this. If I give up this, then it will be better. Well, I gave up that, but now I'm grabbing onto this. Buddhism is very clear. As long as the self delusion, that is the delusion of self, as long as that is there and working, there will be dukkha, dis-ease. And the cause, the root cause of that dis-ease is the craving, either to be something or to get away from something. It's the same fundamental craving. I want it to be this way, and it's not. Shit. That's the fundamental position of the self. And unless you see through clearly, you will just continue like a dog or a cat chasing its tail. Maybe if I get some Buddhist robes, it'll help. Maybe if I chant some Buddhist sutras, it'll help. Well, maybe. Then again, maybe you'll just drop one set of delusions and pick up another one. What is it that needs to be left behind? Right there is the entrance to genuine Zen Buddhist practice. What is it here and now for you? What really needs to be dropped? What is it? You see, if it's not clear, no wonder your practice is unclear and frustrating. You have to make it clear by seeing through yourself. There's no other way. You can read all the books you want, hear all these people like me talking about it. What good does that do? Unless you put it into practice, it's useless. It's less than useless. It just becomes another set of chains. Beware. This is not kiddie Zen. Okay? There's a lot of places you can go if you want that. What is it that you need to leave behind? Get that clear, and 99% of the work is done. You see how confusing it can be if you shallowly read this stuff. Oh, yeah, well, they say we all have the Buddha nature. We're all originally awakened. But then I do have some doubts and confusion, and I did something real stupid yesterday. But then again, somehow I am originally awake, and I got to remember that. Woo, woo, woo. And then you wonder, boy, practice is really frustrating. Yesterday was pretty good, but today, no. And around and around and around we go. Where we stop, nobody knows. You are causing your own dis-ease. Until you see that, you will think of yourself probably as a victim in one way or another. And yet it is you, the self-delusion, that is the delusion of a self. There's where you need to dig in with might and main, with all your heart and soul. That is what this practice really is. Not reading some words and trying to imitate them. Look into the depths of your own heart, please. It's there. It's there. Look into the depths of your own heart. What is it really calling you to do and to be? One thing instead of another? No, no. Before that, what is it? What is it? What is it? You see, we can approach it from different angles, but it must cut to the quick. It must get to the core. Whether we ask, what is it that must be left behind? However we ask it, it makes no difference. Who is this? What is this right here and now? It's the same thing. What really can get in the way of your practice? Show me. What is it? Sleepiness, pain, wandering mind? No, no. What is it that really can hinder the practice? I don't see a thing, do you? You must confirm this for yourself. We spoke yesterday about this notion. I believe Maggie raised the question, and I spoke about this self-centered desire to have an experience, kensho, call it what you like, an experience that will solve all of my problems. I won't have to worry anymore. I'll be up in the clouds somehow, and well, maybe other people will be suffering, but that's because they're ignorant. But this experience will solve all of those problems. Of course, they're not really problems anyway, but I don't quite get that yet. But anyway, when I have that experience, bingo, home free. And I mentioned yesterday, this is pure ego parading as practice, charading as practice. I know, I did it for years. You must see through it. Don't waste years doing it like I did. You don't have to do that, huh? The self-delusion that is this delusion of a self. It has nowhere, no foundation. Look, where is its foundation? Huh? Where is its foundation? It has none. It has none. It can't support itself. It can't even sustain itself. It is unself-sustainable. It is only what could be called the ignorant clinging, because we can't come to rest. So we try to grab onto this or that or get away from this situation. And thus, the dis-ease continues. It continues. And then we say, well, why didn't it stop? I want it to stop. You are fueling it. You are generating it. You are the motor driving it. Thus, the practical practice of body, breath, and mind, sustained zazen, not just zazen, but certainly, especially in a retreat, sustained zazen, to allow that seeking mind, that clinging mind, to come to its own end. If it doesn't, see how you are feeding it and correct it. It's up to you. Nobody can do that for you. Nobody can do that for you. You must see through yourself. And you can. You must. When it's not just a question of, well, I guess I can. Jeff said I can. When you realize this is what you must do in this life, it will be done. It will be done. This is what must be done in this life. When that is clear for you, the way is clear. What is it that gets in the way? Tell me. What is it that gets in the way other than your own vain, deluded thoughts, feelings, emotions, memories, hopes, expectations? And they are finally nothing, nothing. When you sit through and see, when that mind of birth and death, as it's called, Alan Marshall very well quoted this morning. It's actually what's written on the wooden han that we hit each morning and evening to announce the time of day in the monastery. Great is the matter of birth and death. This mind of birth and death. When it finally comes to its own end. And then you see what's there. It's undone. It's undone. Before mind arises, before mind makes a judgment, good, bad, illusion, enlightenment, you, me, before, I mean existentially, right here, right now, that before, not a minute ago, right here, right now, before mind arises. What is there? Tell me, what is there? It's all right there. In all honesty, you ask me, but how do I do it? And I have to respond, how can you not? How can you not? How can you continue to live a painful delusion? How can you continue to go in those vain circles, causing pain to those around you and to yourself? How can you do that? I don't understand. I don't understand. Do you? To be patient with the practice, not lazy, but patient with the practice. If you are impatient, it's counterproductive, to say the least. It's as if the self wants a quick fix, a quick answer, so that it can continue its delusions. If that's what you want, you already got it, don't you? Some kind of a quick answer to your present problem so that you can then continue the same self-delusion. How long before you'll run into another one? Whoops. It doesn't work. Thus, the practice of Zazen, not just Zazen, but the peerless, marvelous practice of Zazen, which is nothing other than sitting, being without self. And when the sitting is done, that sitting gets up and does what needs to be done. And I assure you that is more than enough. And when nothing needs to be done, enjoy an early spring day here in Hungary, a bit chilly, but boy, the flowers are popping up all over. I trust where you are, you're also having fine weather. Ivan, end of autumn for you or what? Is it fall for you in Brazil?
Hey.
Whatever the weather, when the mind is not clinging, it's a clear, fine day. Don't seek a quick fix because it will just create problems further down the road. See into the one who seeks that. What is it really seeking? And can it find it? We might say Bodhicitta. Very simply, the mind of awakening is realizing there is no need for that. There is no need. There is no need to seek a single thing. The whole universe is at our feet, isn't it? The whole world is at our feet. And we say we want more, better. Face it, it's because you haven't seen what is under your feet that you seek for more. Once let that seeking mind come to its own end. That's what real Zazen is. That's what real sitting is. That's what real shikantaza, just sitting through, is. That's what the solution, so-called, of a koan really is. When this seeking mind comes to its own end. You don't go seeking again. The whole universe, the true formless, as it's called in Buddhism, without form, without us fixating a notion or a value or a comparison. No, the real universe, the true universe without form is at our feet. And yet we say, yeah, but could I have it my way? Face it, it's because you haven't seen what is under your feet. What is it that blinds you? What is it that gets in the way? I challenge you to make that clear in your bones. Then you will know. As with yesterday, also today, if anyone has a question from out of the practice, today, because we are ending the retreat, it may also be a question about returning to the world, because if you really leave the world, you know you must return. You know you never really left it to fully return. So today, yes, we can take up questions about that, so-called returning to the world, working it out in our daily lives, confusion, frustrations, whatever. But we still have several hours left in this retreat. I urge you to continue to use it well, to give all of yourself with all the joy in your heart, knowing that this is what must be done. right up to the end of the retreat. And then I trust you will know what needs to be done as you go back to the world. But if you have a question about that for the benefit of all, make it clear. What exactly is your question? Don't babble. What is it? Then for the benefit of all, we can take it up. Alan, I hand it over to you. Thank you all for listening so intently.
Thank you for your fine talk, Jeff. So if anybody has a question, either raise your hand, or if you are able to use the hand raising function in Zoom, which is under reaction, then you can use that.
If anyone has a question here.
Louis, if you'd like to unmute.
Yes, thank you, Alan. Jeff, you mentioned, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Louis.
Okay. You mentioned that hindrances can work for us in the practice if we use them well. Could you say a bit more about that, please?
I will gladly, but I trust you may have something of real value from your own experience to say as well, Louis. Let me begin. I can say from my own practice, I was trying desperately for years to get away from those damned hindrances because they were keeping me from the practice, the real enlightenment, the real thing. What were those hindrances? Well, if you're fortunate enough to live long enough, it becomes pretty obvious, huh? Well, it was the pain in the knees, but then that kind of turned into a kind of a sleepiness and tiredness, exhaustion. And then that turned into a kind of confused mind full of doubts about the practice. And then that wandered off into, eventually you start to realize, wait a minute. I think I see a pattern here. If it's not one thing, it's another. And actually, having a good sit can itself become a hindrance, can it? Right? Yesterday, I had such a good sit. And so the whole day today, of course, I've been trying to have that again. And boy, it doesn't come, huh? It's amazing. And yet people will long for, will desire, will crave that perfect sit. It itself has become a hindrance. And of course, it's not the fault of this sitting, is it? So, as my first teacher at university used to say, the ego self can corrupt anything it comes into contact. And I would add, that includes Zazen. But the flip side of that, Louis, is that once you start seeing through yourself, you realize those hindrances themselves, how to say it, they light up. They light up. They become fuel for the fire. They help to humble you. Do you know what I mean, Louis?
Yes, I do, quite well.
Well, I'm not going to say anything more because I'll bet you have something really precious to say too. Please.
Well, I'll say a few words about how I work with these hindrances. Like you say, there is this confused mind, there is pain. It comes from all directions, in fact. It can come from all directions. The way I work with that is, at times I'm just plainly lost in it. But as soon as I become aware of that, I don't try to analyze it. I don't try to understand it. I don't try to do anything with it. I just breathe it in and breathe it out. I completely pour it in the breath, completely let it go through. And what happens then, you just mentioned it, there's a feeling of deep humility that comes in. It's as if to breathe it in and breathe it out, like makes a kind of very deep feeling arise. And that deep feeling is what I'm trying to call humility. And I don't cling to that, but I notice that each time that I'm able to work in that way with the hindrances, they dissolve, they melt away, and they melt away through that deep feeling. So that's how it goes for me.
Thank you, Louis. In my own poor language, I call what you just spoke of, borrowing my humility, as being without self. Would that do?
Yeah, I would never dare say that, Jeff.
Is that your humility playing up or what?
No, that's plain shyness.
Thank you, Louis, for illuminating that. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
If anyone else would like to speak up from out of their own experience, please feel free. Or if there's another question or concern.
Piotr.
Yes, what somehow going past the hindrances or letting them be, with morning kinin outside, I had a walk. And I was like, wait a minute, now the sitting is walking. And but there is actually no focus, or I can choose where to focus or something. I don't know how to, but as if there is no center at all or something.
Yes.
But there's just this feeling of being, just attention, a very gentle attention to what's around or what's there. And it seems like, I'm not sure how to practice from there without pushing and pulling, and just to be patient, I guess. But I'm a bit kind of afraid I lose that, or I kind of,
Don't worry about that, Piotr. You see it's there, it's clear. It comes from out of your experience. It's there. So don't worry about it. You don't need to seek after, try to maintain it.
Yeah, but I'm worried about me. What do I do with it?
Getting in the way, you mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Piotr, try it.
Okay.
See, can you get in the way?
Actually, I can't, but it happened in the past. So probably it's possible. Yeah, it seems, I don't know. It's also old habits, old.
But can you really get in the way? You think you can. but can you?
No, there is no way to get in the way.
You have to see it through all the way. Otherwise, you're just going to set up some state of attention, state of samadhi, euphoria, ecstasis, whatever. And then that's going to be your goal. And the rest of your life is going to be shit.
Yeah,
And
something like that.
well, you have to see, you are creating that. You are creating that. Practically speaking, Piotr, please refine that attention. You know what I mean? Refine it. Let it become the real silence that it is. You know, a silence that can engulf everything, all the noise in the world. Let that attention return to its true source. It's there, it's there, it's already there. But to realize it, that's all, to realize it. You don't need to turn it into something.
Yeah,
Look
now,
at an emergency. I'm sure you've had to do that. You were a mailman for a while, as I remember. So
yeah,
you've probably come across emergency situations, a car accident, for example, and boom, you have to respond immediately. Do you move the person out of the road? Or do you put a flare up to warn people? Or do you go for help? Do you use your cell phone and call an ambulance? And it's true, some people will go into shock. They're not able to respond. But most people, they're able to do what needs to be done in that completely unexpected situation. Now tell me, Piotr, all of those things in your mind, where do they go when you all of a sudden confront that emergency? Where did they go? Did you push them away?
no, they're useless.
They're just gone. You don't have to,
Yeah.
you don't even have to get rid of them, right? The need of the moment, right? Boom. There is no wandering mind there. Huh? What did I have for lunch yesterday? It's not there. It's not there. You didn't push it away. You see? The mind, your mind has that capacity. You follow?
Yes.
Yes, well, it's easy in a sense in an emergency because it's an emergency. There's no choice. But you have to realize that you're sitting in Zazen is no less of an emergency, is it? To live this moment here. No, someone's not about to fall out of the window or lying half dead on the street. And yet, this moment right here, Piotr, is precious beyond compare. That
Yeah, now,
is always there, Piotr.
yeah, but now it feels like this attention is on a leash, sort of.
Yeah.
And I
yeah.
have to, but it doesn't have to be tight. You can slowly let it very
Loosen it
subtle,
up and-
loosen up, let it be subtle. But still there is this me holding a leash. So yeah.
Good to realize that. You might want to go back and digest those ox herding pictures again. This year is the year of the ox, so it might be useful because it helps to go through, in a sense, artificial, but stages along the way and what that attention, focus, concentration really is and where it, so to speak, ends up, also where it comes from. Okay? Again, thank you for your question. It's not just yours, Piotr.
Okay, is there anybody else who would like to ask Jeff a question? Ronald, if you unmute yourself, please.
Thank you, Alan. Well, not as much a question, but I might have a remark that might be of help. So we were talking about hindrances, and I think Louis talked very well about it, and you also answered, Jeff. But the thing that helped me quite a bit in the past, also in some of your talks, you also called them entrances, and I really found that made a big difference in my practice. That is exactly then the point where you need to apply yourself. So really look into what is this hindrance really. So that is where you need to practice and see it for what it is. And I found that metaphor of the entrance so powerful, because yes, we all have hindrances and they make you and me as well very humble. And I'm working continuously with them, but I found that very helpful in the way I can work with it, actually. So that is something that I thought I might add. Thank you.
We probably have time for one more, possibly two. Steve, if you can unmute yourself, please.
Hello, nice to see everyone. It goes back to Louis' point, I think, a bit around we were digging the garden the other day, and there's a plant. It's got very little flower, very little leaf. Then when we pulled it out, it had a really big root. So it's really hard to dig out that root. And I think that strong root of I is like that. And so working with the sort of I, me, and my reactions and the energy that comes up with that is part and parcel of what we're doing, and feeling that and containing it. And but that sense of, on the surface, it can be quite little, but it's got a deep root. It was just an observation, but it's nice to see everyone.
Good to see you again.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Any more? Cyrus, is that you? Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
It is again an observation, and it's a question about being on track. You mentioned bodhicitta and raising the mind, or the primal energy.
Mm-hmm.
And in the breath, maybe you can say something about it, because I stumbled on it, that in the breath, the very breath is the raising, the in-breath. It's like some body, obviously not, I'm not doing the breath, but I am being the attention that cements to that in-breath, and that is the raising of, and maybe that's helpful. It was just my kind of stumbling upon it. it is the raising, the very in-breath is the raising of the primal energy, or the merging with it. Because I have working on koan and so very much on the out breath.
Yeah, well said, Cyrus. It's really important, I don't know, especially for Westerners, but certainly for Westerners, to just be with the breath rather than think about it or try to manipulate it, but just to be one with the breath. This is very helpful for getting out of our head. Again, not, as you say, not thinking about or manipulating the breath, but being inseparable from it. It's always there, but we go into our head, and we lose that physical contact. And then we wonder why our mind is going on and on and on. The breath, yes, Cyrus, well said. It's a very good way, a kind of an anchor in the practice. Not, again, not the thought of the breath or anything else, but the breath itself. To exaggerate, No need to force it, but over time, it comes to include everything in a very natural way. Thank you, Cyrus.
We're just after half